Again, my name is Matt Gordon. I'm with the Hidden Hockey Podcast, and this is, I think, episode 6 or 7 of the podcast. Um, look forward to talking more today about how the National Hockey League has officially lost the plot. They're completely inept in growing the National Hockey League, and why I believe in the last 20 years there has never been more damage done to an organization than the National Hockey League has done to their fan base. So this is a long video that's going to happen, and I'll be able to show you different things in different sequences and opinions on things that I think have destroyed the National Hockey League as a whole. So let's get started. The National Hockey League has obviously been, the central face of it has been Gary Bettman, and he's obviously been commissioner since 1991. And ever since the early 90s, the National Hockey League has conveniently decided to completely go away from their core element as a hockey league in general. They have done things like institute 3-on-3 overtime. They have taken away any sort of aggression within the game while single-handedly not policing the game well enough through poor officiating and the inability to protect people from head injuries, as well as a variety of other mechanisms and things that they've tried to do to quote unquote speed up the game, um, that has caused this product to fail miserably. I'm willing to go on record and say that I've been watching hockey for over 20 years now. I believe the National Hockey League is the most talented it's ever been, but the product is as bad as it's ever been as well. Because you look at the officials that are going out there on a regular basis, the calls you see that are missed night in and night out are absolutely atrocious and pathetic. And the problem stems from a few different things. One thing in particular I want to bring up is the culture of people bagging on refs. I will tell you right now, officiating is one of the hardest jobs in sport. You're never going to get everything right. You're never going to be able to have everything exactly how you want them to be. But these officials are completely lambasted on a regular basis. They're abused at levels all the way from pee wee all the way up, even mites and the 8 year olds and all that. We live in this culture right now where if things don't go the way they should for whoever you're supporting, the kid, your friend, whatever, people feel the need to take their frustrations out on referees and officials and tournament officials and all this stuff. And it's frankly disgusting because you're looking now and seeing the quality of officiating that is denigrated to such a terrible level in the last 20 years. And that's all because of the culture that's been placed from a youth level onward. You wonder why these officials are retiring at record rates. You wonder why youth leagues can barely hold any of these officials in any sort of tournament whatsoever. And it's purely because of this. There is no other rationale for it. It's disgusting, and refs unfortunately do not have the confidence to make the calls that they were able to 20 years ago because the game isn't officiated the way in the same way. The speed of the game is so fast, and there is an inability for them to really understand exactly why they can't call games the right way. Or if they call the games the right way, they're policed in a certain way because the league wants more higher scoring. These youth leagues want their kids to come up and be promoted into other leagues, vice versa. There's a whole nasty culture around this, and there's a reason why officiating is so bad. Let's move on to the overall game as well in the National Hockey League. We now play, thankfully, in the last couple of years, we've broken out of the system game. There isn't as many boring games where we go and it's checking, dump and chase, dump and chase, dump and chase. There seems to be a lot more broken momentum plays in the last couple of years, and I think a lot of that is due to the speed and skill of these young kids coming up. That being said, we need to start teaching teams how to play more east-west hockey as opposed to north-south hockey. East-west hockey and the ability to have all four north-south and east and west is going to bring such a variability to this game that is going to make the skill and the speed be that much more enhanced. And if that's the goal of the National Hockey League, which they say it is, it's paramount that they do this in the National Hockey League. It's absolutely paramount. You look at the junior leagues right now. There is nonstop thrills, scoring, everything like that. Best value you can get in hockey right now is in the junior circuit. No questions asked. And that's because they're not overcoached, they're not overdeveloped. Everybody's learning at the same pace, and the skill wins over, and the speed wins over, and the smarts win over. And that's truly how the game has always been, and it's always will be played that way. Regardless of whether you take physicality out of the game, the speed, skill, and the smarts of a hockey player are the three most important attributes you can have. The National Hockey League has found a way to, thankfully, as a positive here, they have been able to really make sure that a lot of what they do is focused in that. That being said, there is some competitive integrity within the game that has been completely torn apart from it. One thing, and one example for sure is the inability for these officials to allow players to police the game themselves. Guys can't fight anymore because of the issues within, people experiencing CTE, all sorts of different things. That's fine, but if the league is not, the league can't half-ass a stance. The league cannot go out there and say, we care about player safety and then miss half the calls that they do on a regular basis. Plain and simple, it's disgusting. The way they suspend in this league, George Peros has no idea what he's doing in his job. He really has no idea whatsoever. He suspends who he wants. He doesn't provide any sort of standard for anything he does, and he runs the league as if it's a fighters club. And the odd thing is there's no enforcers in this fighters club anymore. So what the hell is he doing? George Peros is a moron. Gary Bettman's a moron. All of them are morons because nobody knows how to officially go and police these games, but then they want to deny CTE at the same time. And that's a travesty on the players. It's a travesty for player safety of the players. It's a travesty for fans as well because they think we're stupid and they think we don't know these things, but we do. And it's disgusting that everybody wants to put the wool over our eyes like this, pretend like we don't see anything, when clearly you're looking at me right now doing this. You're still seeing a face and you're still seeing lips move. It's disgusting, and frankly, it's very irritating to the hardcore hockey fan like myself and like various others who may or may not tune in, but understand where I'm coming from. Moving on now to 3-on-3. 3-on-3 was instituted in shortened games. That's all it was. It was just shortened games, and they thought it would be a more thrilling and more exciting thing to come through in the National Hockey League. It would increase fan interest. We are now less than 10 years after they've instituted 3-on-3, and it's already systematically figured out. Why they ever made the switch from 5-on-5 OT or 4-on-4 OT makes zero sense to me whatsoever. This league does not know how to attract new fans. They have no idea what young people want or need, and they're incredibly tone deaf to how people talk about the National Hockey League on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, within youth forums, different things like that. They are so blissfully unaware of everything that they've done wrong from a PR perspective in this league for years. Starts, one issue that's really recent that's off the bat is pride tape. Banning pride tape and banning the ability for these players to speak on their own about social issues, about other different things they want to talk about, and how to express themselves. People are attracted to personalities, regardless of whether you're a National Hockey League player, you're in business, whatever you're in. People are attracted to the really stars and, really the stars and the personalities of the sport. And we're crushing personality in the sport because we're unable to understand why there's a need for this. And I'm speaking on behalf of the National Hockey League. They don't have a freaking clue what's going on fan forums, on different things out there in the National Hockey League. They don't have a clue. If they did, a lot of this stuff would be fixed. They wouldn't have never banned pride tape. They would have never done anything in terms of, suspending league interest in certain things. They're just taking down YouTube monetizations on things. They're incredibly tone deaf for their fan base. It's obvious. But they want to throw Frozen Frenzy and reverse retros at you, right? Makes a lot of sense. Just sell another jersey. They'll love it. They'll absolutely love it. And the people that fall hook, line, and sinker into these things are morons. Plain and simple. If you don't see the wool that they're putting over your eyes to prevent true and honest progress in the National Hockey League, then I kind of question how you investigate anything in life, to be honest. It just honestly, it just irks me so much to see this great product in the National Hockey League get completely torn down by the people that run it. It's disgusting. It's just unbelievable. Hockey culture as well. They've done nothing to stir anything positive within hockey culture whatsoever. We have no initiatives out here that are allowing for youth programs to be not only sanctioned and recognized by the National Hockey League, but then you're pulling the very kids out of these youth programs to become your National Hockey League players, and you teach none of them how to properly brand themselves. You teach none of them how to truly represent themselves in ways that are role models to society. And you graduate men and people that end up being like the Milan Lucic's of the world, and the various others that have done terrible things within sport, and let them run free. And it's frankly disgusting. It's frankly unacceptable. And I don't understand why, as fans, we're treated with such negativity, treated with such bullshit. It's disgusting and it's unacceptable. Getting now into the Winter Classic. The Winter Classic was one of the very few marketing pieces this league had right. When they started doing this in the early 2000s, they did an unbelievable job of making sure that this was a special event. It was something you did once a year, and it drew huge numbers. They did an unbelievable job. It was one of the highest rated programming within that year of any sport whatsoever. This was the differentiator the National Hockey League needed to grow this game even more. And what does the league do when they love doing this? They get a concept that works and they bastardize the hell out of it. They go in and they're like, we need more of these games. So they create the Stadium Series, and then they give these games to organizations that don't deserve it. And they go out there and they just make this a mockery. And it's so annoying and disgusting to see it. They did it with 3-on-3. They've done it with reverse retros. They've done it with the All-Star game. They've done it with the draft now with decentralization, which I'll get into in a minute. Every single thing that they've ever had that's a unique thing in this National Hockey League, they have destroyed through their own ineptitude because they don't understand the true things that make this game unique to the average fan. They have no clue whatsoever. It's unbelievable to me. They have continued to do this with the Winter Classic. The Winter Classic now is going to Seattle and potentially Vegas now to have a game. I can't even look at you in the eye and say that either of those teams deserve it whatsoever, first off, and whether it makes sense at all in any of those markets, because Seattle isn't a market, to me, that can sustain a National Hockey League outdoor game. I don't get it. They're the hot new thing on the block. I think in 10 years, they're not going to have a team that's going to be in the top 10 in attendance. I think, if anything, they're going to be one of the bottom teams. They're just going to be like Arizona. And Arizona is a market where they failed it miserably as well, which they'll probably give an outdoor game to save them as well. You heard that here first. And then you look at Las Vegas, looking at the obvious money within Las Vegas and looking at it from that perspective without realizing that there isn't a long-term impact that they're going to have in Vegas that's going to make them any different than any other league. Once the NBA gets into Vegas, once these other leagues get into Vegas, they are toast because they won't be the new thing on the product. They've done nothing to differentiate themselves, and they're going to look like morons in 10 years because they want short-term revenue over long-term gain. Plain and simple, absolute idiocy, absolute atrocity in terms of what they've done for the National Hockey League. Now we can go into Gary Bettman's earliest experiments. One for sure is the Anaheim Mighty Ducks. So the Anaheim Mighty Ducks was a concept based off of a movie that Disney created because Disney was looking to get into sports ownership and different things like that. But they made this movie, and the NHL fall hook, line, and sinker into the bait for the Anaheim Ducks. The Anaheim Ducks now, if you look at their revenues, are a bottom 10 team in the National Hockey League in terms of gaining revenue. They're profiting? Yes, but barely. And we look here and again we see short-term revenue considered over long-term gain. Everything this league does is incredibly short-sighted. Nothing is done with any due diligence. We continue to see them revoke different things that they've instituted because they realize how stupid they were and not looking at the long-term impacts of things. And they continue to do this. This is now 25 years of this complete and utter negligence. It's actually even longer than that. It's almost 30 years of this absolute negligence that's been going on in the National Hockey League. And we wonder why the MLS, the UFC, I mean, anything you can, Premier League, all the soccer leagues, everything is jumping ahead here. Even rugby, various other sports are starting to climb in on the NHL's revenue, and the NHL doesn't have a damn idea what to do about it. It's one of the more remarkable things I've ever seen in professional sport. I don't think they'll ever get over what they want to do, and the owners now are, just in the hands of Gary Bettman for some reason because they believe that Gary Bettman is leading them to revenue. It couldn't be further from the truth. And here are some reasons why. Number one, let's look at the decentralization of the National Hockey League draft. The NHL draft is the most unique thing the National Hockey League had in terms of other drafts because you saw the stories of the people, you saw the live reactions of them with families, and you saw the immediate impact those players had on their teams. And you had a feeder system to equip held up. The other three reasons right here are going to be completely destroyed by the decentralization of the draft. We remember when, guys like Sidney Crosby were drafted, guys like Patrick Kane were drafted, the amount of hype and different things that were placed on these players, more so Crosby, more so McDavid, of the magnitude and the ability to build off of those players that this league had the opportunity to have. And the absolute negligence in marketing this league's superstars has been a major reason why this league can't get above the top four sports. You can't get above the NFL, even though we have multiple crises. MLB, you can't somehow get ahead of, even though they're a dying sport. NBA, you can't get ahead of because you have done absolutely the absolute opposite of what the NBA has done. Adam Silver with the great job that he's done. And then you look at guys, like UFC is coming in here, and I think UFC has taken over the market for the aggressive market the National Hockey League used to have. There isn't a more aggressive thing than UFC and rugby. And those are sports that are getting real traction because they're understanding what they know is their core element, and they've maximized it to their best potential. And the National Hockey League has done an eighth of what these leagues have done in terms of creating the opportunity to make a product that's universally loved and accepted with a clear vision and a clear definition of what makes and constitutes professional hockey. It's lost its identity, it's lost its ability, and that's because the NHL has done a terrible job of marketing its superstars. The newest superstars in this league, you look at the McDavids, you look at the Matthews, you look at the McKinnons, you look at Cal McCarr, look at these various people. All four of these guys are incredibly intelligent people, and they move around the ice very well. They're very fast skaters, and they're so skilled. So you have to sell on speed and skill in this league. And this league does nothing. They don't do any fast-paced marketing. They don't do any high-intensity stuff. They're terrible at any sort of POV type stuff. They don't know how to market their superstars at all. And then when they have interviews with these superstars, they absolutely deny them the opportunity to be anything more than just milquetoast answers. And there's a reason why nobody knows who the hell Connor McDavid is in Wichita, Kansas, but they know who Giannis Antetokounmpo is. You know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. You know who you can name any nondescript athlete in the NFL, NBA, or the MLB. They're going to be able to note probably 5 or 6 people from those leagues at a minimum. In the National Hockey League, you may get somebody who knows Crosby and Ovechkin. Maybe. Nobody knows who Connor McDavid is. Nobody. He's been in the league for 8 years, and you have nobody outside of the NHL markets who knows who Connor McDavid is. What the hell kind of marketing advantage do you have if you can't market your best National Hockey League player? and make him seem like he is an absolute superstar you must watch. It's disgusting. Honestly, it's negligible, and everyone who's involved in the National Hockey League, outside of a few people, should be completely cleaned house. The international hockey game now has been completely ruined because the National Hockey League, this is another thing they've done wrong. They've never been able to get the Olympics right because they have the biggest marketing revenue generator they could have in the Olympics, and they blow it every year by not bringing the National Hockey League into it because they're scared of the insurance benefits they got to carry on these players. Well, guess what? The insurance benefits you carry on these players are way, way less than the potential income you can gain from getting fans out of the Olympics from different countries that you never care to explore anyway. Look at these countries like Kenya can form a national team. You look at Mexico's gaining a lot of interest. Different country, Japan, every continent right now has, other than obviously Antarctica, every continent has some sort of form of hockey on it right now. And they blow it every single year when they don't put games on every single continent every year. It is unbelievable how bad they are at this. Take the exhibition season, make it a big deal, and go across. Make it a traveling world tour. Regular season, you can keep the same. Doesn't matter. That's fine. Nothing's wrong with the regular season outside of the ability to not officiate games correctly and for these players to get screwed out of points multiple times a year. Besides the point. Make the exhibition season worth something. None of the leagues do this well at all. This is your opportunity to have an NHL World Tour, get out there and do different things. And you know what? Maybe the NHL should put some insurance on these players for the understanding that there's the ability to gain so much more money out of these things. It's unbelievable how completely dense some of these people are. Nobody knew that the National Hockey League was playing in Australia this season. Nobody. That's why the numbers were so trash, because nobody had any idea what the hell they were doing in NHL head office. Nobody. They had a unbelievable marketing chip there, and let's putting hockey in the Aussie desert, and they blew it. They blew it. They blew it. They blew it. They blew it by not having one of the teams being Nathan Walker, who is an Australian-born and Czech-trained player who could have gone back and played in Australia as his homecoming. Yes, he's not a household name. Yes, he's not a superstar. But we look at that stuff and we ignore it as the National Hockey League. And it makes 0 sense. 0 sense at all. Let's look down an international game. The international game now is at a travesty right now. We look at now the recent proposal they want to do for 2025 for the World Cup of Hockey. Canada, Sweden, U.S., and I believe the Czechs. It would be a 4-team international game. No Russians in there, mind you. I can't even begin to tell you how unbelievably negligent that idea is for the rest of the growth that they've had in the National Hockey League. The non-traditional markets that have not seen the results of what they've had gone in. You look at the Detroit Red Wings have Daniel Sprong, he's from the Netherlands. Nathan Walker is a guy I just mentioned. He's played more in the AHL this year, but he's played in the National Hockey League before. He's from Australia. Jordan Spence is another guy who's got Australia, and he's got a little bit of Japanese heritage within him as well. You got Gorgiev is a guy who played for Bulgaria. He's a guy of Bulgarian descent. There's so much opportunity that's getting missed out of these non-traditional hockey markets because their inability to understand that they should put money within the development of these countries and grow the game internationally in ways that isn't really done in any other sport. The only sport that's done it somewhat well, and that's the NBA, because they held these youth camps in these different regions, and you see the superstars that come out of them, like the Luol Dengs. You look at Bull, Monte Bull. They've had an opportunity to go and mine different talent sectors in places where there has never been talent mined out of. And the league fails to do this every year. They do. I don't understand how they don't hold more youth camps. I don't understand how they don't invest more in international hockey development, because you're going to see those players if you do. You're going to see National Hockey League players eventually out of China, eventually out of Japan, eventually out of South Africa, eventually out of Mexico, eventually out of Uzbekistan, wherever you invested in. You're going to see players out of those places once you invest in their infrastructures and their ability to handle these things. it blows my mind how the misses they have on a regular basis is disgusting. I'm going to take a breath now. It's been 25 minutes of me just straight ranting on the inability of the National Hockey League. If you want me to go over different things, leave some comments below. I'll address them in another video. Maybe there's a Q&A to this video. But it's just there's so many things this league has done wrong on a regular basis. I didn't even really touch about the Olympics and how they've lacked in international hockey. I can get more into that if you guys leave comments below. But it's so frustrating to see the National Hockey League do this on a regular basis. Now we look at, a current issue right now is Marc-Andre Fleury can't wear a Native American mask because the league threatened to have him fined. When are these players allowed to address the issues they want to address? When are they allowed to express any sort of personality? And when are they able to do something that makes any sort of sense whatsoever? It blows my mind. It's disgusting. We look at guys like Shane Pinto who are getting 41 games now for a betting ban, and their sponsor is a betting company. You're able to take money from the betting company, but you're not allowing athletes to bet on sports other than the National Hockey League, which he's already been proven not to have bet on the National Hockey League. Totally understand the suspension if he's betting on things within the league. That's incredibly wrong. Lifetime ban, no question. If he's betting on college basketball, who gives a shit? Who cares? It doesn't matter. It doesn't impact the game that you're playing or you're going out and doing. And then you want to go out and you want to police this stuff as you're the big bad people when you don't even have a clue what the hell's going on with the growth of your game. The NHL has no fucking idea how to grow the game whatsoever. It's honestly remarkable. It's truly something I don't understand. And it is a long-term fan. It's very frustrating. I don't even watch games outside of the Wings anymore because I don't care. I don't care anymore. I used to care a lot. I used to watch games from every market whatsoever. I used to do all that stuff. The Frozen Frenzy isn't going to bring me back. I'm sorry. The Frozen Frenzy is a cheap marketing tactic, something that is so incredibly played out. They have all this logistics to set this stuff up, and they fail miserably every year. Nobody gave a crap about the Frozen Frenzy. And just like nobody's going to give a crap about the National Hockey League draft after they decentralize it because it's going to become such a boring TV product. Nobody's going to care. And that's the future stars of your game, and nobody's going to give a shit until they get into the National Hockey League. And that's a problem. Because you look at other sports, you look at college basketball, you look at college football, both are landing spots where people can look at players that are the future stars of the NBA and the NFL well before they get to the National Hockey League. The MLB, you have your AAA programs, but they're in minor markets across the country, your double A's, your single A's. Every opportunity to view these kids is there at all times. The National Hockey League right now, before you get to everything's in Canada, and everything's, the USHL is in certain markets, but they don't do a damn thing to do any sort of TV contracts for those people. CHL coverage is non-existent in the National Hockey League. It doesn't exist ever, which makes no sense whatsoever. You're not even marketing your true talents that are coming into the league beforehand. Truly blows the mind. It really honestly blows the mind. I don't know if I'm going to talk anymore because it's a half an hour. I'm going to let you guys comment below what you think, the other things the league's done wrong. I can get into this. It could be a part 2, part 3, whatever. I just had to do my frustrations, let everything out. I can't believe how unbelievably negligent the National Hockey League is. If you have more comments, feel free to leave them in the draft here. I'm going to do some, different topics. I'm going to get more into the 2024, 2025, and 2026 drafts in my next video. As always, this is a little break for my draft coverage. Feel free to follow me on Instagram at Hidden Hockey. YouTube, obviously, you can just hit the subscribe button. Would be greatly appreciated. I love putting out content when I can. Been really busy as of late because of some personal circumstances, and I greatly appreciate you leaving a comment or anything you can do to view this video. Be greatly appreciated because I love talking about it. As always, thanks for viewing. And feel free to leave any comments and feel free to leave any chats for any future videos. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.